So what's going on guys, Kids here, and welcome back to a brand new video. For today I will show you the best starter characters in the first Descendant. In general, this game has a lot of unique classes and descendants to play and choose from. But the big question is, what is the best class for you? So we will take a look at all the new classes to see which one will suit your playstyle, which is the highest damage, and which ones are easy to play and learn for a new player. So if this sounds interesting to you, then let's get right into it. So then moving over to the first character, and it is the Bunny. She is a massive damage dealer who sprints while discharging electricity. The more she runs, the greater the electrical energy she accumulates, allowing her to release the energy in a powerful shockwave. Like all the Descendants, she has one passive and 4 active skills. Her passive skill, called the Rabbit Foot, will charge electricity when moving, which inflicts damage to nearby enemies when landing after a double jump. Then as for her active skills, the first one is called the Thrill Explosion, which summons an electro orb that attacks nearby enemies and inflicts them with electrocute effect. Then the Lightning Speed skill will make your sprint speed increase significantly and acquire more electricity. Then the Lightning Emission skill will do that when you move around, it will deal damage to nearby enemies and inflict them with electrocute effect. And finally we have the Maximum Power ability, which will shoot out electricity forward to inflict damage, and your damage increases in proportion to the skill duration. Then next up we have the Valby character. She is a constant damage dealer who moves around freely through her water arch. She is a terrifying torrent to her enemies as she can summon a refreshing ocean wave. Her one and only passive skill is called the Water Intake, which when using skills while standing on water will consume less mana. Then as for her active skills, the first one is called the Bubble Bullet, which bounces a bubble bullet forward to create a small puddle. Enemies in that small puddle take continuous damage and are inflicted with laundry. Then the Plop Plop skill will create a large puddle where she is standing and then dive in. Valby then pops out at a selected location in the large puddle, and enemies in that large puddle take continuous damage and are inflicted with the laundry. Then the third skill is called Laundry, which will make your character become liquefied. While liquefied, she cannot take her feet off the ground or use skills, but she can move through enemies and her movement speed and defensives will increase. When moving while liquefied, she creates a path of water that deals continuous damage to enemies and inflicts laundry. And finally we have the Laundry Explosion, which changes the equipped weapon to the Laundry Explosion Launcher. When the launcher is fired, a laundry explosion is created, pulling in the enemies inflicted with laundry and dealing continuous damage. So then for the third character we have the Ajax. He is a tank that utilizes void energy. He leads the team with a force field that protects allies while deflecting enemy attacks. His passive skill is called the Event Horizon, which helps him acquire void energy after using skills. When the void energy reaches its maximum amount, it enhances skills and grants additional effects. Then the first active skill is called the Orbit Barrier, that creates a shield in front of you. Durability increases proportional to Ajax HP and defensives, but if you are enhanced, then this will reflect damage proportional to defensives when enemies are hitting the barrier. Then the Void Walk skill will make your character leap into the air and land on the ground to strike nearby enemies by stunning them. If enhanced, this skill will also create max shields for a certain time. Then the Expulsion skill will strike nearby enemies, knocking them back, and again if enhanced, knockback range and max shields are increased. And then lastly we have the Hypercube, which creates a dome-shaped shield. The durability increases proportional to Ajax HP and defensives, but if enhanced it will also reflect damage proportional to defensives to the enemies hitting the barrier. Then moving over to the next one, which is the Freyna. She is a dot dealer, aka damage over time type of character, who freely manipulates venom. She can utilize the venomous substances produced by her body to trap enemies in swamps of toxins. Her passive skill is called the Contagious Links, that increases the toxic skill power by the number of nearby enemies inflicted with her poison. Then the first active skill is called the Toxic Trauma, that gives her the ability to throw poison to attack targeted enemy with damage and inflict room 0 trauma onto nearby enemies. And all of these new words and terms I will explain a bit later in the video. Then next we have the Defensive Mechanism, that significantly increases defensives There is also a chance of inflicting room 0 trauma to enemies upon an attack. Then next up we have the decomposed poison skill that will throw toxins to form a toxic swamp. Enemies entering the toxic swamp receive continuous damage and become inflicted with poison and venomous soaked. Enemies inflicted with the venom soaked leave the toxic footprints as they move, and enemies that touch toxic footprints also become inflicted with that poison. And finally we have the venomous baptism skill, which changes the current firearm to the venom baptism. Enemies hit with the venomous bullets are inflicted with room 0 trauma as well. So then for the 5th class we have the Blair. He is another damage over time class that deals continuous damage and who manipulates fire. He gains energy by adjusting firepower, and the hot dishes he throws traps the enemies internally into a flame zone. Then for his passive skill, we have the Pitmaster, which increases your critical hit damage when attacking enemies in a burn state, and your critical hit chance increases depending on the number of stoves in the battlefield. Then the first active skill is called the Blaze Up, which spurts flames to deal damage to nearby enemies and create a stove. The stove will inflict constant damage and burn nearby enemies. Then the Extinguishing skill will retrieve stoves in the battlefield and restore mana. Retrieving stoves increases defensives for a short period of time. Then the Burn State skill will release flames forward. Enemies near the flame's arrival point are inflicted with constant damage and burn effect. And finally we have the Deadly Cuisine, which throws a large fireball forward. Then the large fireball splits into small fireballs, causing extra explosions. Explosion damage inflicts burn effect and creates a stove on the ground. This stove will also deal constant damage to nearby enemies and inflict them with the burn effect. So then for the next character we have the Lepic. He is a DPS character who uses grenades to attack. He can clear the battlefield with his tactical prosthetic arm and grenades which give him a powerful performance. Then the one and only passive skill is the Close Call, which makes that there is a chance of surviving fatal damage during a battle. Then the first active skill is called the Grenade, which throws a grenade forward at the enemy. You will get extra burns when the Overclock is active. Then next up we have the Overclock skill, which increases all skills ATK and adds up a burn effect to grenade, and overkill for a set duration. Then the Traction Grenade will throw a grenade forward to pull the enemies within a range. And then finally we have the Overkill skill, which fires a powerful shell at the enemy. The shell is maintained at the landing point for some time while inflicting constant damage, and you can get extra burns if the Overclock is active. So with that said, I really do appreciate everyone for watching guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have questions or suggestions for the next video, then feel free to leave your comments in the comment section down below. And while you're doing that, please click like, subscribe and enable that notification bell, so this way you could support the channel and not miss any more amazing content. With that said, you have an amazing day and I will see you in the next one. So take it easy, peace.